An entitled mother tries to take over my wedding, demanding that I allow her daughter to be a flower girl at my ceremony. And I've honestly never been more blown away by somebody's entitlement in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of background, my fiance and I planned our wedding for over a year. We wanted something small yet elegant, something that would have close friends and family. My husband's family is pretty down to earth, except for his aunt, who's known to be over the top with her behavior and entitlement. Everything was going smoothly until the week before the wedding. My husband's entitled aunt called and demanded that we include her 6-year-old daughter as a flower girl. Now, at this point, we already had 2 flower girls, and that was occupied by my nieces, and they were really thrilled about doing this. So I politely declined, explaining that arrangements were already made. Well, this entitled mom didn't take this well. She started a tirade about how her daughter was being excluded unfairly, and how we were ruining her child's self-esteem. I tried to stay calm, but honestly, she was relentless. I had thought that that was the end of it, but oh, I was so wrong. On our wedding day, this entitled mom showed up with her daughter, dressed up in a full-blown white flower girl dress. She marched up to me demanding that her daughter be included in the ceremony. And when I saw that, I was honestly flabbergasted. My husband and I, along with our wedding planner, tried to reason with her, but she just caused a huge scene. She was saying stuff like, "How could you be so selfish on our wedding day?" while also saying that we were destroying a little girl's dream. Now, my usual quiet mother-in-law had simply had enough at this point. She stepped in and told this entitled mother in no uncertain terms that this was our days and it was not her daughter's. She said that if she couldn't respect our wishes, then they would have to leave. Well, when she heard this, she was shocked. She actually tried to argue back, but other family members who were equally fed up with her antics supported my mother-in-law's stance. Realizing that she was outnumbered, this entitled mom left in a huff, with her daughter following in tow. The rest of the wedding went off without a hitch, and everyone had an absolutely great time. We did hear through the grapevine that this aunt complained about us to anyone who would listen, but most of the family knew her history and they took it with a grain of salt. Now, I'm honestly very grateful for my amazing in-laws who stood up for both of us, boosting up my confidence in our marriage's success even more. Wow, that aunt is absolutely out of line. Like, seriously, imagine not taking no for an answer, but also showing up to somebody else's wedding and being like, "Okay, you're gonna let my daughter be your flower girl right now." Like, was she seriously trying to strong arm her way into getting her daughter into this wedding? Like, any rational adult would look at that and be like, wait a second, this is incredibly intrusive. Like, this is not only incredibly wrong, but also really weird. Like, my secondhand embarrassment would be off the charts if I was there. But honestly, it is really cool to see that your in-laws stepped up and decided that they were not gonna let this happen for another second. They clearly know exactly what this aunt is like, and they clearly know how to handle this when things go bad. So honestly, it sounds like you married into a really good family besides this aunt, and hopefully in the future you don't have to deal with her in this capacity ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not paying the whole cost of a vacation that I was invited to go on, despite the fact that I was never told ahead of time that there would be any cost that I would be responsible for? Because right now, my friend and her mom are calling me a jerk for not paying full price. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So over Christmas break, I was invited to go on a vacation with my friend Jane and her family. Jane is not her real name. Overall, the trip went well. There were 5 of us in total, and we drove to a city about 2 hours away and stayed in an Airbnb for about 5 nights. During the trip, we participated in some activities like rock climbing and horseback riding, as well as a biking tour. We also went hiking as well. However, the night we got back, I was surprised to see a Venmo request for $600 from Jane, all for my portion of the trip. Now, mind you, these costs were not discussed beforehand. I couldn't imagine the activities being this expensive, so I asked for a cost breakdown. In response, Jane and her mom emailed me a spreadsheet of all the costs, which included the trip activities and charges for gas, groceries, and my restaurant meals, but also included my Airbnb cost. In all honesty, I thought charging me for groceries, gas, and the Airbnb was excessive, so I asked Jane if it was possible for her mom to take out these costs. My rationale was that they were going to stay in the Airbnb and travel there regardless, and this is if I came or not. I even shared a bed with Jane, so it's not like I took up a significant amount of space. I also don't have a lot of money saved up since I'm still in high school. Well, Jane's mom said that I need to contribute and pay the full price. And this is where I might be the jerk. I decided to be petty and only send over $500 as I couldn't justify the cost for gas and groceries. Unfortunately, this has strained my relationship with Jane, and we have not hung out since. She thinks I'm a jerk for not paying the full amount and questioning her family on the cost of everything. She said that I embarrassed her and her mom. So honestly, am I the jerk here? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk in this scenario. If there were costs associated with this trip, then that definitely should have been articulated well in advance. There is literally no good excuse for any of this, and honestly, the fault falls on Jane and her mom. Like, why would you not tell your teenage friend that, yeah, they're gonna have to pay like, what, $600 for the trip? Like, I don't know about you, but that seems like some very valuable information to know ahead of time. And it's also weird that they're like, yeah, you gotta help pay for the Airbnb, but you didn't even like take up any room. You literally shared a bed with your friend. It all really seems like penny pinching after the fact, and that in my opinion is absolutely obnoxious. So no, I don't think you're the jerk, and honestly, is Jane really someone you even want to hang out with in the first place? Because honestly, I can absolutely see this happening again. Am I the jerk for not wanting my wife to tell her family about our financial situation? Because right now she has completely spilled the beans, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I recently found out I will be inheriting some properties and a significant amount of money. I told my wife about it, but made it clear that this is only between us and she is not to tell anyone, especially her big mouth sister. I don't want anyone to know about the inheritance. I don't want them to know that I'm going to invest all of the money and that I'm going to hire a property management company because I intend to keep our current lifestyle. Well, last night at dinner with her parents and siblings, her father congratulated me on the impending windfall, and my brother-in-law pulled me aside to ask about the houses I'll be receiving. He and his wife, and this wife is the big mouth sister, have been saving for a house but haven't saved enough yet, and their credit scores are low. Now, I was very angry with my wife the entire night, but I decided to keep it in check. But on the drive home, I yelled at her. I admit that it wasn't my finest hour, but she did the exact thing I told her not to do. She argued that my secrecy demand was not right and that she had the right and duty to tell her family about our financial situation because it is also her financial situation. We argued for hours, so when I finally had enough, I told her that she can't be trusted to keep our secrets and that I'm not telling her anything else about the inheritance from this minute on. Now, I said that in the heat of the moment, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. She tells her sister everything, and whatever her sister knows, everybody knows. I don't want the entire city to know what's going on with our bank account. We're due to meet our attorney and a financial advisor next week, but I think I will change the appointment to just me. Just to be clear, she's free to discuss anything with her family. I've only had 2 topics where she's not allowed to talk about stuff, and that's namely my health and our finances. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? In my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your wife is completely out of line telling your financial situation to her family. Like, what is she thinking? If you're really inheriting all this money, why would you want family up on your back all the time, making requests from you that you definitely do not want to try and fulfill? It sounds like the original poster is getting a lot of money and a lot of properties, and I know if I was in their shoes, I would want to keep it quiet. Like, I wouldn't want my extended family or my in-laws to know about it, because once they know about it, then everybody's gonna know about it. And I know if I was in the original poster's shoes, I would be so annoyed by this. So no, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your wife made a massive mistake by explaining any of this to her family, because this is only gonna cause headaches for you and her for the rest of your lives. My mom gave up on me when I was 18 years old and moved back to her home country just to spend time with her boyfriend. And now, after nearly a decade, I have finally confronted her about it, and I'm honestly not sure of what to make of my situation. Here's what happened. So when I was a child, my mother and my father had huge arguments. Our house was an absolute nightmare. They both liked to drink and used to drink and have fights at home. My dad even became physical at times with her. They both ended up divorcing, and my mother, my brother, and myself moved out to another house. But here's the thing. My mother was never financially independent. At the beginning, she relied on my father for money, and after divorce, she relied on my brother, who was around 22 back then. Right when I became 18 years old, she found a man in her country and moved back, leaving me with my brother because my father was absent at the time and created a brand new family. I had started working apart from studying at that time, and I tried to live with my brother somehow, but he used to gamble and even sell furniture, apart from not washing his dishes, and just lived like a pig. We argued a lot until I told him to leave and find a new apartment because I couldn't deal with his dirt all the time. So eventually time passed, and I'm 27 now, and for a whole year, my mom underwent a really bad financial situation, with me helping her financially every single month. I went to visit her several times for a short time, and I saw that her drinking habits got quite bad. She drinks at night and she also smokes, which are habits that started irritating me so much that we had fights almost every single day. Once I'm back, she started saying I'm ungrateful, while also saying that I started fights for no reason. She only calls me when she needs something and never calls me to see how I am. On top of that, she told me that if I ever wanted to go and live in her country, I should find a new place and she won't accept me in her house. And it's not like I depend on her. I actually have many skills and I can easily find a job. Apart from studying, I've been taking care of myself since I was 18 years old, and now I have a degree and a master's degree with a proper job. Overall, I just felt terribly disappointed by her. First of all, she left me when I was 18 years old just because she wanted to do her own life and found a boyfriend in her home country and moved back. Then she tells me all of this, and I told her I no longer want her in my life, that the only ungrateful person here is her. When I start telling her the truth, she hangs up and says that she's tired. At some point, I felt like I had a mother, but now I honestly don't. She's been living in her parents' house since she moved back, and she never actually cared about the fact that I was only 18 years old and that I had no father by my side either, and this is when she left me to go live her life. I only had a gambler as a brother, as well as my studies and my job, and I needed her at that time. When I tell her this, she says to me that I'm already an adult, and while my father has been physically absent in my life, he still paid for all of my studies. So honestly, am I wrong in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're wrong at all for confronting your mom about this, because seriously, she does not sound like a good mother. Sure, you were 18 years old, but it really does sound like she kicked you to the curb. Also, she could hook up with this new boyfriend she met in her home country. Like, I can only imagine having literally no one there to help you out and still picking yourself back up and figuring out your life. Like, that honestly sounds awful, and I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. So truly, with all things considered, I don't blame you for confronting your mom about all of this, because the way she's been acting is incredibly entitled, and in my opinion, I don't think you deserve this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to start using my first name despite the pleas from my family? Because right now, I prefer my middle name and I'm thinking about changing it, and I honestly at this point seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I am named after my grandmother Nancy, who is my mom's mom. There is a bit of a tradition in my family to name the first grandkid of each gender after one of the grandparents of the same gender. I was the first girl, and my mom wanted to follow this tradition, but my dad didn't, so I was named after my mom's mom. My dad chose my middle name of Sky, and ever since I was in kindergarten, I've been using the name Sky instead of Nancy. My family called me Nancy for years anyways, but eventually everybody else would call me Sky when they wanted me. My teachers called me Sky, my friends' parents, our neighbors, our doctor, literally everybody. So eventually my family started to call me Sky as well, and sometimes Nancy would slip in, but I personally never used it. Now, my mom and my grandmother were the people that were most upset. My grandmother, because she felt like she didn't get her grandchild named after her, all because it was never used, and my mom because she wanted the tradition too, but also she doesn't like Sky, and only said yes to it as a middle name because my dad didn't like Nancy and she didn't want to be unfair. Now, here's the thing. I have toyed with the idea of changing my name when I turn 18 years old, but it feels like that would be an absolute nightmare. Ever since Christmas, my mom, grandma, and some other family members on my mom's side have suggested that I should use Nancy again. My grandma told me that it would mean a lot to her, and she said I'm getting to an age where the name doesn't seem so bad or old. My mom even told me that Sky isn't really a name I should be going into my adult life using. She said that Nancy will sound much better. She also told me that it is my name, it's my real name, and it would be a pain to use a name that isn't my legal first name as an adult. Other family members said that I should do it to make my grandmother happy, or I should do it because it seems like I'm rejecting my mom, which is really weird to me. My mom and grandmother sat me down last Wednesday and told me that it means so much to them and pleaded with me to go by Nancy. They said I have used Sky for 11 years now, and also said that it might be time to grow up a little and use my name and use the family name. My mom told me it's embarrassing to her because some of her friends have asked why I hate my grandmother or my name so bad that I use my middle name like it's my actual name. But you know what? I told them that I don't want to be called Nancy, and I will not start using it instead of Sky. I told them that I am Sky guy, and that it might not be easy for them, but it's what I prefer. And I'm the one living with my name. I am the person who has to introduce myself after all. Now, my dad is on my side and has tried to get my mom to back off, but she has been really unhappy since Wednesday and has been a little bit hostile since my refusal. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. This is honestly so weird. People use their middle name to refer to themselves all the time. They're trying to make it sound like you're disrespecting the family, but honestly, your mom and grandma just need to get over themselves. And for the record, the name Sky is a very normal name. Don't listen to anything they're saying. Like seriously, if you don't want to be called Nancy, then no one can make you be called Nancy. There are plenty of people who have gone through the exact same thing you're describing right now, and the fact that your mom and grandma are trying to make this seem like some outlandish thing is honestly just manipulation on their part, and I would not pay attention to that in the slightest. So truly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think your mom and grandma are being incredibly weird and very manipulative, and if you want to be called Sky from here on out, then there's honestly not much they can do to try and stop you. An entitled customer freaks out when he sees that he has to wait in a line of about 150 people just to get a rental car from the airport that we just landed in. And I've honestly never seen a bigger temper tantrum from a grown man in my life. Here's what happened. So this took place in the summer of 2016, and it was the last time I flew on my own dime. My 90-minute flight arrived more than 8 hours late because of weather, and we landed 3 times in random places because our destination was at the center of a curb stomping from the weather gods. Many flights arrived around the same time in the same circumstances. Looking around baggage claim, it was like someone rounded up all the extras from The Walking Dead and got them fresh clothes from Goodwill. So this is where we are, collectively unable to care for another second. I boarded the shuttle to the rental car agency of choice, along with dozens of other poor souls who just wanted their awful compacts to get out of this abysmal place. There was already a considerable line, and the desks were all at full capacity. It looked like some people were making some unexpected overtime because they looked almost half as miserable, albeit still professional, as we do. I mean, nobody wants to be in a big city airport at 3 o'clock in the morning, and no one has done this to anybody else. It just seems like the gods themselves had a party, and everyone here was on cleanup duty. So needless to say, it was absolutely awful. It really sucked. That's when this middle-aged jerk enters the scene. This jerk was a special type of jerk and was the only one here having a bad day. He took one look as he entered and made a noise that caused the majority of people to look up and give him a look that basically said, "What's your problem, buddy?" Well, it turned out that we were his problem. That's when yelling suddenly ensued. Fortunately, the employees who totally get paid enough to deal with the adult-sized child at 3 o'clock in the morning on their day off were the direct target of all that spewed forth from this jerk. We, the offending line, merely caught some of the splatter. And basically, this guy was not going to wait in this line, and that he didn't wait in lines, but instead lines wait on him. This was also 7 years ago, so some of the dialogue has faded from memory, but his mantra throughout all of this was him screeching that he was a preferred customer. Now, where the customer service person had shuffled him off to was definitely at a weird angle. It was inhibiting visibility, but it certainly sounded like he was crying. There were no details on why he was more important than the rest of us, you know, aside from his super shiny preferred status. This continued at various volumes for upwards of almost 20 minutes. During those 20 minutes, one of the desks ended up closing because the fellow working it had to deal with this jerk instead of checking people out and make the line shorter. Well, I want to tell you that it didn't work, but he did end up getting out of there ahead of me. Now, given that option number 2 was to hit him in the head with a shovel, I sort of understood the customer service rep's point of view. I mean, 150 people are too many to keep a secret. But on the plus side, there are now 150 people with his face emblazoned on their memory, who, if they were stumbled upon drowning, they would throw him a cinder block. We were all family at 3 in the morning except for that one jerk. And honestly, I just hope I never have to deal with a preferred customer like that ever again. Wow, that sounds like an obnoxious situation that seriously, I don't know if I would be able to keep my cool in. This guy seriously is walking up on 150 people at 3 in the morning and is then gonna act like he's the most important person on planet Earth. It's like, seriously, buddy, we're all trying to get out of here. No one wants to be at this airport. It's 3 in the morning and we're all miserable. The weather sucks, this line sucks, and pretty much this entire airport sucks. Not to mention the line of people having to be held up, all because this jerk is making a scene. Like, is it really that hard to just get in line and figure it out as you go along? There's a difference between exerting yourself and really making sure you get the customer service you deserve, and then there's this guy who's screaming and crying all because there's a line. And because because he was screaming and crying, it screwed it up for everybody else. No one else could get their stuff on time because he pulled one of the people away from their desk. Like, he literally made the problem he didn't like even worse because of his complaining. So truly, I know if I was in your shoes, I would be very unhappy about dealing with this guy at 3 in the morning because honestly, everybody just wants to leave. And this guy freaking out and screaming like the world is ending is definitely not going to make any situation any better. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.